as the U Sports team. And I see that we're recording, so feel free to ask questions so that it's on the record. So today, wanted to take an opportunity to just kind of talk about the year that was, some things that we're going to be looking to implement, clarify, improve upon from the U Sports National Office perspective. But before I begin, I do want to say Kwe, Annie, bonjour, hello, and acknowledge that I'm coming to you from unceded Indigenous lands. As this is National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada, I'm coming from the Kanakahagi Nation is recognized as the custodians of lands and waters on which I come to you from today. Jojagi, or Montreal, is historically known as the gathering place for many First Nations, since today is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. Et en tant que le petit-fils de chef honorifique de la nation Anishinaabe, Johnny avec le cœur aussi large que l'envigueur d'un aigle, Bauer, je reconnais les connexions avec les 7 générations du passé, du présent et de l'avenir afin d'approfondir les relations avec nos frères et sœurs autochtones. Et je le fais en reconnaissant les 7 enseignements sacrés du grand-père, dont je tiens au cœur, and I pledge to continue to build connections with the 7 generations and deepen my understanding of Indigenous cultures and to strive to live by the 7 grandfather teachings, those of truth, wisdom, love, bravery, respect, honesty, and humility. Shimigwich. The next thing that I would like to do, if it would take a moment to turn the microphone over to my esteemed colleague, Alicia Brown, who joined us in September of last year. And not everybody has had the opportunity to meet Alicia or see Alicia in person on a Zoom call, outside of those who have been involved with some of the national championships this year. So Alicia, I'll give a quick background for those of you who don't know her. She came to us from the University of Toronto and Hart House, where she had worked in marketing communications for 6 years, I believe it was. 5 or 6?
5,
okay.
Yeah. A long time.
And while she was doing that, Alicia also happened to be a 2-time Olympian in track and field, finishing 4th at the most recent Summer Games, but also an All-Canadian as a member of the University of Toronto Varsity Blues track and field team. So somebody who comes from our ecosystem and knows what it is to be a student athlete, and she's been a tremendous addition. She's to the team. She's going to be taking over more responsibilities this year from me. And one of the reasons why last year I kept so many responsibilities on my plate was so that she didn't quit in the first 6 weeks, let alone the first 6 months. So we welcome Alicia, and she'll have an opportunity to speak with you in a few moments' time as well. I wanted to share with you a little bit of the presentation that we made last week at the AGM. So I'm assuming that you can see this this PowerPoint right now that I'm making larger, and I'll get rid of the thumbnail here.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, hide sidebar. There we go. Okay, so this is our marketing communications review. Don't need to go through the sponsorship pieces unless you really want to hear about it. But as you know, this past year for 22-23, we welcomed new employees. So Alicia, Tyler Mulligan, who had been with us as an intern and then came on as a consultant for a year to help us with the transition through the departure of Alan Hudis prior to the 21-22 season, moved into a full-time capacity with us on digital content and content creation. Alicia is our manager of marketing communications, and John Edwards, not new to the network, but new to the national office, came on board as the manager of sports information. We did distribute at the beginning of the year a bit of a grid as to who does what. We're working through that, and we will present that to everybody in August as to who to go to for what, because there's still a lot of people that go to Tyler for things that should go to Alicia, or go to me that should be going to John, et cetera, et cetera. So we just want to make it easier for members to get to the information and get to the person who has that information as soon as they can. We also brought in a series of content creators this past year who helped us with creating some interesting contents. And I would really like to Neville and Jordan, who were two of our interns who came on, but Jordan in particular during the month of February did a lot of the work in our Youth Sports Conversation in Black History Month, telling the story both through video, but also through written content. These are things that we don't do well enough right now, and we are working on our plans on how to make sure that we are doing a better job supporting the various celebratory seasons throughout the year. And we'll get into that in a few moments' time. We also, I'm very, very pleased, we have gotten to the point that our logos for future years' championships are done. We have 3 that are still outstanding for this year. And it's just because we're working with the hosts on minor tweaks, adding a sponsor into it. But I think it's really helped us to get that far ahead. And you'll see in a couple of minutes' time, or you may have seen 4 minutes ago, the logo for swimming and go out. As we're going to McGill and the 2024 swimming championship. So we've gotten ahead of the curve on that, which means that it will open up more bandwidth for us in season, not to be focusing on working through logos and visual imagery, which was a real challenge for us the last couple of years. So a couple of things we wanted to report back on are the number of our page views on our website miraculously went up 61%. I can't see Earl right now because we're not in the full page here. I'm going to scroll down because must be just shaking his head when he sees this. However, the one thing that we will report back on is we've done a real drill down because we are moving to a new website. It is coming. It will be this fall. Hallelujah, Pearl. We will, our website, what the data is telling us is that people are coming to our website for schedules and results, stats, and standings. So you're going to see us pivot away from some of our written content on the website into more just information, infographics, videos, because that's where we're seeing the real growth. Even though the numbers of page views went up by 61%, we had even greater growth on our social side of things. During our championships, we're up to almost 30% in the fall, 1.5 million more page views than the previous year. And then in the winter, 2.26 million. This is where our real growth was. So our impressions were 23.4 million. You're seeing a lot of growth in our social media on Instagram. And I know some of you are saying, well, finally, Youth Sports got on Instagram. But we have a staff that actually understands how to use Instagram now. And that's the big difference. We stuck with Twitter because that's what we knew and we were most comfortable with. We did not want to go into different social spheres and be unauthentic. So now that we have staff that actually has a better idea on how to use some of the platforms, that's why we're seeing such a growth in Instagram this past year. But we still saw 3 million more impressions on Twitter than we did versus 21-22. So we are now back to we're growth versus the 2019-20 season. So prior to the pandemic, whereas the 21-22 season, we were well below where we were previously. Our digital broadcasts, we reached 950,000 streams this year. And you can see where we were under 100,000 before the pandemic in 18-19. In 19-20, the only reason why we were over 100,000 is because of the number of streams that we had for basketball and swimming, which were free. They were OTT. Everything else behind the paywall, we were under 100,000 views. So we're going in the right direction, and we have a tremendous partner with the CBC who is working with us to bonify that. On our digital broadcast this year, we increased diversity in our commentating crews. We did 3 remote broadcasts last year, and they were successful. Whereas the year before, we were doing remote broadcasts, and it did not work well. When we centralized in the ISI studios in Ottawa, we were able to do some good work, having Signa Butler from the CBC, who will be calling Olympic soccer for the corporation, doing the women's soccer play-by-play with Brianna from Queens, who was our color commentator and doing some of the play-by-play as well, was really good. We were really pleased with that. And then we did 2 French language broadcasts from studio, one of them because the facility, so Thompson Rivers, which did a fantastic job for the men's soccer championship, we could not have accommodated a second broadcast crew in the facility, and with the temperatures that occurred during the championship, and Alicia can attest to that, it's a good thing that we had them off site. We also worked with Universum across 5 championships out east. Having an Emmy Award-winning director helps tremendously on staff, and we saw some fantastic coverage of championships in the Atlantic provinces, and we were also able to come up with some economies of scale because of that. We were also able to take our digital broadcast and upscale to television for our 2 hockey championships, gold medal games on TV Sport, which allowed us to have just over 500,000 2+ television viewers this past year. Some of the initiatives that we did this year, the athletes of the players of the week, or the players of the week. We said athletes of the week in the sports of athletics and swimming, but the players of the week allowed us to have full equality. So we had the same number of recognition opportunities for male athletes as we did with female athletes this year, for the first time since the player of the week in football was adopted in 2001. We also were very fortunate with our partners at Black North Initiative to bring forward the Athletes on Track program this past year. So we had 8 bursary winners, as well as them being mentored, and we'll be continuing to tell that story as we roll through the cycle, like we did with the female coach apprentice program, where we continue to allow people to tell their story and their experiences through the process. But the reason why I wanted to show the example of the photo on the right, we were much more intentional in our approach to showing the diversity of our student athletes this year in our various imagery that we put out. We did find that we were still very white in our promotional pieces. So we've been very intentional in being much more representative of the diversity that is in our ecosystem. Of course, we also had the Shoot for the Cure program, which all of you were very much involved with. Thank you again for the promotion that you provide during the that whole campaign, and the idea of having a national campaign online helps tremendously, and that's why we stay over the $100,000 mark. Although the check says $101,000, we had $112,000 raised this year through various initiatives. So that was the presentation that I wanted to give to you, so that you have an idea of where we came from this past year. What we're working on for going forward. Well, let's start with the new website. We will be going to a Presto website in this fall. It's going to be tight for us to have it for September 1. We're looking probably October 15th, the changeover, thereabouts around Thanksgiving. If we can get it sooner, great. If we can't, we want to hold off until we have it, but it will be before the championships. One of the great things that will occur is that we will have championship sites that will show the participating teams, all the hotel information, the schedule, stat leaders, results, all on one page. If you go to the ACAC in Alberta and go to one of their championships, acac.ab.ca, you'll be able to see how that rolls out, or the NJCAA as well. So Canada West they're going back to Presto. OUA has gone back to Presto. So we're realigning there, which brings us to the stats. The stats, so every school will have access to the full stats gathering platform that Presto has. You can continue to use Stat Crew for the time being. You can use Hockey Tech, I believe is what it is for hockey, so long as they export into XML and can be ingested into the system and have stats going live back into the system. It works for us. But Presto, there is tennis for next summer when tennis comes online as a youth sports program offering. We have field hockey, soccer, hockey, volleyball, basketball, all in those in there. And as of the fall of 24, football will be there. So that is where we are moving for our Canadian football stats gathering. We are working with them to take the NCAA module that they are redoing and integrating Canadian football into that. So as of the fall of 2024, that's where we'll be going. There will be a memo going out to all of you and to the ADs later this week or first thing next week to explain where we're going on football stats. We had considered Genius. We had a proposal in front of us from Genius and the CFL, and it's still too expensive. So that's one of the key pieces there.
Well, based on what I'm seeing online, the CFL is not doing a very good job with their stats with Genius right now. So maybe that's a good thing.
So now Krista brings up something about customer support. There are different ways to get in touch with them that we will work with you having, but there are people that we deal with directly that have very good response. So if you're having issues, depending on what you're using and how you're trying to contact them, there are some things that the president of the company has been working with us on. So we'll be sharing that as we get closer to the season. So as I mentioned, the structure of the department will be circulating in August to everybody. Roles and responsibilities, so you know who's doing what, but high level, I'm overseeing all of our digital broadcasting and our linear broadcasting, and anything to do with the linkages to the championships. Alicia, she oversees website communications, logos, and sponsorship servicing. I'm also sponsorship. And then we have Tyler on the digital content creation, social media, and John is more of a pure sports information stats. We will have record books completed this summer for volleyball and Alicia, what's the other sport? Well, there's one other sport that the record books will be. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember. We will get back to you on that.
We'll get back to you, but we will have the record books completed there. Where John and the interns have been working on that. So once we have it, we know that there is the possibility that there are going to be errors in there that we'll need to verify, but this is the best information that we have available to us. And at least in sports, some of the sports will start to have some records that we can then continue to bonify as we have with all other records that we've done. And I think we may keep that more in-house the first year, so that we're working through that, making sure that we eliminate the errors. The website stats. The other piece that we're really looking at is so as we start to reduce a little bit our written content on the website, it's how do we create a buzz? So we've landed on the U Sports Buzz. Le Buzz U Sport works in both English and French. And that's what we're going to be looking to create when it comes to some of our digital content this upcoming year. And it's a co-creation piece, and I'll let Alicia speak to that in just a moment. But the concept here is to go and meet our audience where they are. Although our audience does tend to skew older, we are seeing growth in younger demographics because of our presence and use of multimedia. So the buzz, the whole concept here is that anything that we would do would be the buzz, including tying it into a potential game of the week. Game of the week is a large word. A regular presence on CBC Digital in the season, whether it be the winter season or run up to the Vanier Cup. So those are we're really excited about the concept here. We're going to start out slow and build up, as opposed to come in with something that we may find is not sustainable during championships. So we're going to slowly ramp that up as the year goes on, as we have our full team in place to ensure that there is sustainability. Now that I'll turn it over to Alicia to talk about some of the thoughts that we have and ways that we'd like to engage you on co-creation.
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, thank you for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I'm seeing some new faces, which is really exciting for me. So just building off of what John mentioned, what our data has shown us over the last year is that video is king. And so we spoke about transition away to a certain degree from written word and diving a little bit deeper in video content and graphic assets. And so something that we are extremely excited about with this project is the opportunity to tell athlete stories, to really amplify their voices and create more spaces or more platforms for athletes to build their brand, develop their futures, and ultimately elevate the profile of their institutions and their programs as well. And we know that many of you are already doing this work and doing a wonderful job at telling stories all year long. And as the national office, we are working really hard to continue to carry that momentum forward and create even more opportunities to elevate our student athletes. So this is in part where U Sports Buzz is born. So at this time, we are most interested in prioritizing the following 3 themes in terms of our storytelling. So one, sport or performance successes. And what that really means for us at this time is it's more real-time content. So that might be game highlights from the week prior. And then number 2, academic achievement. And what's really important to stress here is that it doesn't necessarily need, it does not need to be solely top 8 academic All-Canadians. There are many students that are doing fabulous things on and off the field of play. And we're really looking to give those students the opportunity to share their stories. And then lastly, community service. I think that's pretty self-explanatory in itself. But what's really great about the academic achievement pieces, as well as the community service, is that those aren't time sensitive. And what that means for us as a team is that we can start working on those content pieces now. And so allow us to hopefully get ahead of the curve. And that's what we've been focusing a lot on over the last couple months. So in order to make this project a reality, it does require some support from you all. And what I'll do is I'll start by just listing off some ideas, and we're open to additional ways of working together as we continue the conversation. But what we're seeing right off the bat is a need for B-roll content. We'll need additional support with setting up interviews with athletes. And this could be something where we rely on your support to set up those interviews, and then we go ahead and we meet with the athletes and conduct interviews via Zoom. But if your teams also have capacity to take on the interviewing process, whether it be on site, on the field of play, in your facilities, that's certainly another option that we'd be open to and we would very much welcome. And then, of course, I feel like this is last but not least, is your help in identifying strong stories. No one knows your athletes better than you do. And so something that we've been discussing on our end are the best ways or best practices for us to have stories pitched or communicated with our teams. So of course, we could look at email, using the telephone, picking up the call and just knowing who it is to contact. Or we float around the idea of also potentially setting up like a Google Forms, for example, or something where we all have access to it and we can submit ideas. I see, Angela, you have a question? Go for it. It's a good time.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really say if we would stop in or come back to it, but I didn't want to. Just one thing that comes from me, like I love what you're saying and in talking about it. Like we're we have a little more than a toe in the video world now. But the thing I think about, like, if we are the same athletes that you're going to want to profile, are the same ones that we're going to be looking at trying to profile here, right? As Dalhousie as an example. So I think it could work, but I think there's a lot of hoops to jump through in terms of scheduling and making sure that, you know, if I want to, like Lucy Glenn Carter, if I'm planning on doing a feature in her leading up to our women's volleyball home opener, just as an example, but you want to do that profile of her later on, you know, where does that connect back? Because then, you know, I don't want, you're going to be asking, there's going to be a lot of overlapping in content. And then also in terms of the promotion of that. So if I'm going a whole hard on LGC in October, and then you're talking about her in January, and then we want to amplify what you're doing, it, like, from that perspective, like, and maybe I'm alone in this, or I'm not actually my point's not really coming across, but it seems like a bit of a duplication in some of those things. Am I alone in thinking that, or is anyone else of that same mind as well?
I was going to agree with that, and then even double down on it and say the conferences as well. We want to do features as well. So I think there's this whole chain of command that we need to loop into and kind of see who's doing what when, so that we're not doing duplicate work like Angela mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Timing is everything.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was going to add was, I think what's important in order to navigate something like this is ensuring that we have really open lines of communication. So what we're hoping to do is really work with you to create opportunities to elevate your athletes and not necessarily retract or take away from the work that you're doing. So it's more about how can we collaborate under one common goal.
If I may, just before we go to the other questions there, for example, when we did the national championships last fall, we ran in the women's soccer championship a two-part interview that was done by Rich at UNBC for Mara, a non-binary student athlete. So we were able to take something that ran 18 minutes, cut it up into two features, skin it. So at the top, we say we introduce Mara, and the second part of their story will run during the gold medal halftime. So that's an example of us taking something that was already out there, but that the audience may not have been aware of. And it's really, it's taking and amplifying what is being done. But sometimes for a player of the week, if we wanted to, on the sport performance side of things, that's a U Sports announcement. The conferences aren't announced. It may not be the player of the week may not be the same athlete of the week from their conference, because in the conference, like Ontario, there's only a couple of athletes of the week, whereas we're going across all sports. So we maybe have something, a student athlete from your school that wasn't recognized by your conference because they're only choosing a conference athlete of the week in male and female, one each, whereas we're picking potentially 10 in a given week. So I hope that they're really good points, because everybody does want to have that content. We're creating it in a different fashion, and the big piece is always pointing back to, for more information, for the full story, check out this place. So it could be your website, it could be CBC, it could be wherever it is. We want to be the vehicle that points people to, as an air traffic controller, as to where to get that content. That's our role as U Sports, as well as creating some interesting new content.
If I could just add quickly to your point, John, I think it might be helpful to also mention that the length of the clips for U Sports Buzz are going to be roughly 60 to 90 seconds. And so that creates another channel to fully tell those stories. And like you said, it could be linking back to the member institution, the conference, or whoever owns that content piece.
So Katie kind of touched on it. I think like conferences have an ask every year. And we get that from like the OUA, for instance, sometimes in August. Maybe if Chris is on vacation, it's a little closer to September than some of us would like, but generally we get that ask, and it's kind of like, here's our plan, here's what we want to do to promote your athletes, here's what we need. So I think if we got that email from Chris in the OUA the first week of August, then you send something that's similar the next week, and I've already sent something out to athletes. Like, I think if we could get, the conferences may not all be the same, but if you could connect with those conferences to see what those asks are going to be of their members, before you're sending out what you're doing, because we don't want to duplicate our work to Canada West, OUA, U Sports, because we already get those requests as it is, because they want to showcase our athletes. I know people may laugh, but the weird spreadsheet that Alan, I think, had done showcasing, like, in March, you're going to have a coach feature and all that. As silly as that was, and as weird as that was to scroll, it was nice to know when you needed certain things from us. So again, like, when you guys have the asks, if you can get those to us, like, I mean, if you had it now, it'd be great, but like, as soon as possible, or touch base with those conferences sooner than later, so we can obviously plan accordingly for what you need. Obviously things happen, and the player you think is going to be a star may not be, and then somebody steps into the limelight and you still want a feature that we need to build out. But if we're already doing stuff for the conferences, it would be great for you to connect with them, so we can just do all that work at once with the athletes.
So Chris, just on that, the sports side of things, we're going to probably that more to the conferences. We want to start actually getting content in the hopper over the summer, and it's on the academic side, and it's on community service. Or community service is not just volunteer. It's somebody who has something to say about something that's going on in the world right now, what is impacting student athletes. That's what we want to give them, that opportunity to speak in an authentic voice. And so if you have stories now of interesting people, and it could be the bench warmer who is the biggest cheerleader, but who also does work with motion ball, right? Those are all things those are stories that they're timeless, meaning that we can run them at any time, but it's also good content for us to be able to put into a halftime or an intermission during our national championship broadcasts. Because regardless of what sport that athlete in, they're a youth sports or they're a university student athlete in Canada, and we want to tell those stories. So that's what we're trying to get to, is that it's not necessarily the same as what the conference is asking for. We want to be able to talk to athletes and work with you as members, but also with the conferences, because when we do it, we want everybody to be able to create the content once, and then multiple groups can use it at different times, because you may create something that is for OUA, but we may be able to use that during a national championship broadcast, right? So that's the lens that we're asking the members to think or to be looking at this through as we move forward. Because yes, we're we understand that you're going to get a lot of different requests, let alone all the different requests that you get on your own campuses for that information as well. Connor?
Thanks, John. Appreciate the presentation from you and Alicia, and I really like those 3 pillars that you guys came up with. Is there any thought to adding a 4th pillar being alumni? I think that, I don't need to explain to everyone on this call, but obviously U Sports is a pathway for athletes to get to the highest level at their respective sport. And I felt like it was a bit of a gap this past year that U Sports didn't really promote the athletes that were making it to the highest level, be that the 3 or 4 alumni that made it to the NHL or the Olympics or World Championships or national team. Obviously, alumni are a big part of what we do, and we need to promote our student athletes making it to the highest level of their respective sport.
I'd go even one step further. It's not just the pros; it's those who go on to contribute in society. So you're right, Connor. It is something that we were deficient on this year. John Edwards and I have been talking about this from like Earl does a lot of really good work in research on. We saw that with the NFLers, U Sports, CIS, CIU athletes who played in the NFL, et cetera. Those are the pieces that we need to continue to get better on going forward. The one thing so our Marcoms department, we're a little bit different than what you are doing on your campuses. Insofar as that's our mandate is to really promote, to drive interest in our national championships. And we are meeting every week. We have 4 or 5 host calls that we are on, focusing on the national championship. So there has been a pivot away from some of that content that was done previously, so that we were providing better service to the hosts. We are not, and as we transition into that, Connor, we are taking a step back on some of the content that we used to create, and we're not quite there yet with supporting the hosts and where they need to be, right, from a youth sports perspective. So we are in a bit of a transition phase, and we're still down 2 staff members from prior to the pandemic. We may get one if our sponsorship agency starts bringing in the money that they anticipate bringing in. Then we'll hire a sponsorship person, which would then take some of the sponsorship off of Alicia's plate and my plate to focus on that. So what I'm trying to say here is that it was noted by us internally. I know we do a lot around the drafts, and I wonder if that's the time for us to put all the effort into it rather than more when the seasons start, because we have the CEBL, we have CPL, we have CFL, we have NFL, we have NHL, we have PWPH, we have the we have the old NWHL, which has become the PHF, and the PWP. Oh, good Lord. The Dream Gap Tour. Sorry, there's so many acronyms flying around. That we should be telling those stories as well. But that's why we also have the Alumni of the Year awards. So the alumni piece is something that we haven't done a great job on. We would usually do it just around starts of seasons, but we're not telling those stories. So you're right, it is a pillar that should be added. We're going to be slow in adding that in, but I think the point that you're making is some of the touch points right now being sport success and going into the sports immediately while they're hot is something that we should be improving upon.
Yeah, and for sure, definitely not a critique for me, and it could be some of the work that the member institutions help you guys with, just with heads up on players making it to certain levels. And I appreciate the emphasis on championships. I obviously understand that, but also showing that pathway for the 16, 17, 18-year-olds to show that U Sports is a viable option for them to get to the level they want to.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's duly noted. John Edwards and I last week driving back from the AGM, we had an hour-long conversation on that. You know, how do we do that going forward? And that's the other one. Sorry, just a related point. John is furloughed until July 31st. He is a 0.8 full-time equivalent with U Sports right now. Again, these are part of the things that coming out of the pandemic and budget restrictions did not allow us to hire 2 full-time people. So John will be away for the next month, but back on July 31st to get us ready for the season. So, but yeah, it's identifying strong stories, and that was one thing that I know that Alicia did mention. You know, we want to work with everybody on how do we do this, and we want to make that database open so we can all see what's going in there, because everybody's pitching the same story. That's one thing. And then the last piece was, we know that the leadership group of CANSIDA wanted to work with us on the sports information bulletins for national championships. We want to get ahead of that. We will be bringing that back up in August when everybody's back, and start working on that. John Edwards will be leading that charge there. And the big piece is, like, that document is really large. We want to get it down to like a 1-pager, so we just know where everything is, which is why we're asking you to, when you have your rosters made at the beginning of the season, just upload your rosters into the Basecamp as well. Because then we don't have to really worry about getting rosters or headshots. If you've got an opportunity to upload your headshots, and you think that you got a chance to go to a national championship this year, when you get the photos, just drop them in. Just put them in there, and then they're there. You know, and we also don't have to go chasing down and trying to get photos for different assets that we might need for Players of the Week, etc. Thank you to everybody who sometimes had to go and track down a coach who would get a headshot of an athlete at a pool or at a wrestling venue because the headshots hadn't been done yet. Thank you for all of your efforts in helping us this past year in deliver on some of those pieces that were a little nutty that are typical across all of our campuses, right? And then the last one is, if you get into a bowl game or a Vanier Cup, and even at championships, roster declarations in advance for games are critical. We need to do this, especially since CBC intends to continue with its remote broadcasting of the Vanier Cup and the bowl games. So that means that we need the rosters by 12 noon the day before a game. And for other sports, we need rosters at least 90 minutes prior to the beginning of your games during a championship. So that's where it's not on you, that's on us to enforce that. But we want to help you, and any feedback that you have on how we can help you convince your coaches to give you that information so that it comes to the youth sports office to be able to push out to the broadcasters. That's the other thing. And then the final one was CBC is continuing its investment. They'll be increasing their investment in university sport. They're looking at a weekly newsletter. Ben Steiner is going to come on staff, most likely to be a part of leading that charge for CBC. However, if you have stories to pitch to the CBC, they don't want 56, now 57 SIDs reaching out to the leadership. So if you have something that's a really big story that you've got that's breaking in a couple of days or whatnot, just let us know and we'll connect you with the people. But CBC does not want you going to them repeatedly afterwards. Okay, because they have all the other NSOs and the head of network sports and the person who is responsible for live programming has been very clear to us on that. They want one point of contact, which is youth sports, into them. But and that's because they don't have a structure that can take in 56 pitches per week. But if you have big news stories that's coming down the pipe, you have an interesting hire, let us know, and we can talk to them on your behalf, and if they have an interest in it, then we connect everybody. But the request is that it would not go direct, and that's not from us. That was said by Chris Wilson last week to all the ADs and AADs at the annual meeting. Just one more thing that has to come through us. Yay. But it's a process. But again, if we have that pitch idea, that pitch folder, we might just give it to the access to the CBC, and then they can go in there and they can connect with you as well. Like there's ways that it doesn't have to be Alicia or me picking up the phone and pitching somebody. It may already, we just have to create the tool that would be accessible to everybody. So I know we've gone a little long and we've done a lot of downloading of information to you. But you know, we're getting better. And I hope that over the last couple of years, we have gotten to a point where we are more out in front of things and not hitting you with as much last minute information or requests or major requests, such as, hey, you know, here's a hockey guidebook. We need you to edit this, and you have 4 days to do it at the beginning of the season. All right, do you have any questions for us? Pearl?
Don, can you
Yep.
hear me?
Yes, I can.
Is there any progress with the upgrade to a youth sports website?
Yes,
Are we
yes,
stuck
we
with
will.
the same.
Yeah, we will have a new website probably around October 15th. Hopefully sooner, but that's our timeline right now. And on that, it will be very similar to, so Canada West's website, OUA went to Presto with it. It's integrating things like standings into the main page, scores, making sure the scoreboard works, etc. All things that we don't have currently on our website, and we will have a mobile app.
Isn't it October 15th an odd time of the year to be launching?
Yes, it is. It's that the contract wasn't signed by. So with all the different pieces, including the stats piece for football, things came together a little bit slower than we had hoped. And that means that we're trying to hit for the September 1, but I think more realistically, we're probably looking at October 15th. But I would prefer us not feeding 2 websites at the start of the season, because we will have to do our current website plus the new website. So Presto is working with us to get it as soon as possible, but August 15th or October 15th is probably where we're landing as a safe place, but we're trying to advance that.
And sort of related to the website is and stats is the standings. It's every sport, every conference seems to do standings differently. Can we find a way to have some sort of universal standings so that we can look at each conference on a CIS page or esports page that has some consistency to it?
Yeah, that unfortunately, as a lawyer once taught me, is out of jurisdiction or ultra vires. We have no control over that. That's coaches and sport committees in the conferences making those decisions. You know, it's like, how do we accommodate like the 4-point games in AUS? We have to manually enter those in. It's just a reality that some of our conferences have. And it does make things a little awkward, but you know, we're at the end of the day that we just have to go with what we can. But I do understand what you're saying there. It's you know, how do we display those properly without having to put all the little wording and caveats in there? You know, you get 60 tries in a game, 40 points. You don't give up 12 points, and you all get points for other. Like, well, what is that? But it's inherent to the sport, apparently. So, you know, I'm not picking on rugby, but rugby is the one that has some of those crazy rules in there about bonus points, right? That do come back to bite us in the backside.
Any other questions for John?
Yeah. Or Alicia?
Or
Alicia.
yes.
Ben?
Okay, so this is just quick. I am in the sport info department at York, as you can see by my shirt. There were a few times last year where Mike Nellis, my colleague in the department, was off work. So I was the lone person in the department, and I was missing some communication from the national office because I was not on the mass email list.
Yep.
So if I could be put on there for this upcoming season so that that doesn't happen going forward.
Absolutely, Ben. If you can send us if you just send us your coordinates, and we'll make sure that happens. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I see it. I'll look after that for you, Ben.
That might be the easiest request that we're going to get from you in your life. So thank you.
I agree. That's an easy one.
And that's the thing, team. If ever you have new people come in, or you know, for us to add students interns into our SID list, like just send them over. Don't worry about, you know, if we don't even necessarily take people out either. So you know, let us know about that. Angela?
Just a big part of the reason I reoffered to sit on this cabinet again, you know, is about advocacy. It's something that I'm passionate about, and promote, or maybe a better term is cohesiveness and you know, relationship building with you know, between schools and conferences, schools and the youth sports office, and conferences and youth sports, and I there are others on this group that share that same passion, I believe, and we really want to. I know we're not an official thing when it comes to the youth sports, but we really want to put it out there that we want to do whatever we can for our members, but also for, you know, the national office and our conference offices, in terms of, you know, what can we do to help make things better for everybody? And it's not a matter of, sometimes it's just a matter of a time, or, like building website pages, like especially, we're on Presto. I know Presto really well. Like, are there opportunities for us, to help with some of those things? Like, underpaid, not understaffed. A lot of our organizations, our athletic departments are like that. We feel that, but then also working for a national sport organization under a board of directors is not easy, and you've got a finite amount of resources. So anything that we're able to do to help and make a positive working environment for everybody involved, and show support and love versus anger or finger pointing, and which has happened in the past. I hope we move more away from that. So I just kind of want to put that out there, that the cabinet is open to doing lots of other things, and expanding. Even we could add more members to help facilitate things that will help the national office grow and focus on some other things that might be more important when it comes to earning and retaining those sponsorship dollars and assisting with national champion. Like there's capacity out there for some people, other people not. But I just want to throw that out there as it's being recorded so they can be gone back to. And just show that I really want to do what we can to help support everybody in this process, because it's a long, hard season, and we all get tired. And I just think there are ways that we can come together to make things easier for everybody.
Absolutely, Angela. That's really well said. And the piece that I've seen over my time at U Sports is a change from identifying problems to solutions being proposed from our members, meaning that, hey, I see something, and instead of just a complaint, it's, you may want to consider this, or can we help you with this? And that's the piece that I really appreciate. My fine feathered friend Earl and I go back a long time, almost good Lord, almost 25, 30 years now. And he's somebody that I go to, or he'll call me up out of the blue and say, hey, notice on the website, notice this, I was thinking maybe this might be a solution, or, how can, I've found this workaround to make the hockey stats talk to each other. Perfect. Thanks, Pearl. Like, that's the type of stuff that giving us that heads up and what you're seeing, because sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we already know that things are happening or going sideways, but sometimes you see something that we won't see for days. So those are the types of things that and as you're underlining, it's awesome to have that type of network of 50 plus stakeholders who are in the same boat as we are. Spence?
Yeah, just a quick question on the sports specific social media accounts. I'm not sure if it's a right away thing. I just know that it's obviously during championship season, they're more active, but I think that sometimes we're in the habit of tagging the U Sports whatever account in something, but obviously interaction's not necessarily there, but I know that it's not monitored all the time. But I just didn't know if that there's a plan for whether it's this year, next year, 5 years, for a growth of those, because I think it is a good place to share multiple stories from the same sport over the course of the entire year and kind of speak directly to fans countrywide. So
yeah, absolutely. We started doing that a little bit more with the Players of the Week going into the sport specific channels this year, and we did see an uptick on that. So Tyler is through Hootsuite monitoring what's coming in when you tag, etc. So we are working through that. Tyler is but one human being, so yes, we have some things there that we need to be a little bit better on. So a good example would be last year at the when the GGs were at the Americas Championship in women's soccer, right? We were just resharing or retweeting on one platform, right? We weren't necessarily putting it across all. So those are the things where we need to be better at. And that's where, like, if there is a major event that's coming up. So let's take the Crowchild Classic in Calgary. If there's something there that we know that you want us to amplify nationally, reach out. Like just let us know this is coming, because we may know it's coming, but we may not think about it until the day of the game, because we're thinking of other things, right? So any type of suggestions like that we can use, that we can push out onto our sports specific channels, because as we retweet, that's where people are going to see. We're not going to get into sports specific channels on Instagram. That's the one thing that we will not be doing right now. Just that's going to require a full team of social experts to be able to do that across the country. But yes, our commitment is to continue to grow those channels, which I don't think you would have heard me say 2.5 years ago. I would have been saying we're going to continue rolling up into one and get rid of the sports specific channels. But when we get to championships, that's where we need them, and we need to be interacting with our fans more than 3 days a year. So I completely agree with you. Andrea.
Yeah, hey, just on that note, as an institution that is hosting a national championship this year, is there a specific timeline that hosts could or should be able to gain access to those sport specific accounts, so that like we could do more of our own promotion of our championship? Does that make
So
sense?
we don't give out access to the channels anymore. That was something that we retired about 4 years ago. However, that's a discussion you should have with Tyler. Tyler's on vacation this week, which is
Okay.
why he's not here today. But you know, we're not opposed to looking at that. Okay. So yeah. But at the same time, if we're doing that, then we'll want to have Heather involved in a discussion as well from SASC. So that it doesn't become a University Cup channel all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I think that there's some good pieces there that we should be, the way that we do it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right way to do it. Let's look at this and see what we can do as a team.
Yep, sounds good.
And Tyler, since you're not watching this, but you'll see the recording. Sorry, buddy, I just committed you to something. And just a final thing, I see Graham Naismith's name on the list here. Graham jumped in, helped us out with women's hockey as an analyst, was outstanding this year at the national championship. What is really awesome working with everybody here is solutions, because sometimes the best laid plans. We had the dream team of broadcasters for women's hockey last year. Our A team was Kenzie Lalonde and Robin Flynn, and then Kenzie went and got herself hired full time by TSN. And then Robin, her newborn had some health issues, so she had to pull out. So very thankful to everybody who helped us pull that together, because we had what we thought was an ideal crew in English for the entire championship. So things like that happen, right, as we go along. So just thanks again, everybody, for your help. I know that some of you we worked a lot with last year, because you're at championships, but somebody like Krista McKenna who got the pleasure of hosting a bowl game on 5 days notice, or Western, who hosted 3 championships in 3 weeks in football. Like those are the work that you do is amazing, and thank you for your support, your friendship, and the fact that we can all kind of sit back at the end of the day and have a bit of a chuckle and go, holy God, what did we just do? And you're right, Ange, Chris, it does thrive on that pressure. And I saw it when we were at the basketball championship and we had to evacuate the arena.
Yeah, that was awesome. Power outage in the middle of that, just after a doubleheader.
Yep. All wonderful things.
Good times. We took a selfie outside. It's all good. Roll with it.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic. It was a beautiful day in March in Halifax, No, it wasn't raining, so that's a win. So thanks everybody for your time on this, and I'll turn it back over to Jill and to Chris.
All right, everyone. So thanks again, John, for coming on. Obviously, looking forward to seeing everything coming down the pipe with U Sports. For those that may not be on their news lists or whatever, I know that my AD actually reached out to me and said, hey, do you need to update any contact information? So maybe your schools aren't all like that where your AD actually connects with you, but maybe just see if your AD updated your actual own department's contact list with U Sports, because I know that he got that request. So anybody else want to didn't know how much time we're going to have, but obviously we're all going into vacation season, which hopefully we all know how to do really well, so we don't need best practices for that. But anything you're working on for the fall, I know media day is a big one that a lot of schools are moving to. I know we're like year 3, year 4 coming into ours. That's something I'd like to know if there's any best practices you've learned over the years. But is there anything, if nobody wants to touch on that, is there anything you want to touch on with people? Anything that you're working on, you're building towards the fall that you want to ask others that are on the call, what they're doing or how they've done it best? I know media day, like I said, is the one that we've kind of adjusted every year and we're still not there yet. So I would love to hear if anybody has anything they've learned or really has gone well for them.
I have a pretty specific question about media days because we're U of T and we're very large and we have a million different sports. The trend now is, if you don't have a picture of yourself in your jersey, you're not a part of a team and blah, 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 blah. So our media days used to just be, we would pick a handful of players from each team, the leading scorers, the Alicia Browns of the track and field world, but nowadays, the bench warmer wants a shot too. So this year we are doing like full team media days. And like, is that how everyone else does it? It just seems like a lot. Is that what everyone else does? They invite the entire team?
We still pick, those top athletes. This year we had a little mini media day for football at our spring camp just in May. We also had our Porsche dealership drive some cars out onto our turf, which was interesting, but we got a lot of them because again, football is such a big team. So we got a lot of our returning players to do that then, and then we'll get some of our new recruits when they come in August, but we're still choosing those main athletes who are on that teams with a few sometimes some of our BIPOC athletes as well. They may not be the best athletes on the team, but again, that diversity piece is pretty important to us as well. So we want to ensure that we're including them too.
Sorry, I asked the question, so I'll say John.
Yeah, actually, just on that media day, team would love to get your thoughts on media conferences leading into national championships. Like, is everybody getting a lot of media coming out to media days these days, or is it more you're creating your own content, or is it specific to whatever sport? Like, because we do say that we want media conferences, right? But is it the right way we do it? And we've been thinking about this for bowl games, which is a disaster, that maybe we should just do a Zoom media availability of the 4 coaches on the Monday, as opposed to trying to set something up on site on the Friday. So it's just something that's been kind of bouncing around in my head. And when you started mentioning about the media conferences, it just got me thinking that I forgot to ask that question. And it might be something that you just send your thoughts to us as well, but anyways.
I mean, I can certainly say from Saskatchewan's perspective, there's been a lot of cuts to sport media, especially all those layoffs that Bell just had. So we're a very finite amount of sport media in Saskatoon, but the ones that we still do come as much as possible. So yeah, they would also probably prefer Zoom, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, Ray and his team are pretty good.
Yeah, well, Ray won't be around forever either.
Exactly.
Yeah, pros and cons, but I mean, with their tightening schedules as well, and there's less of them and they have to still still cover all the sports, it's just a lot easier for them too.
I'll just jump quickly on Jill's point. we're going to do more media day stuff here too. Obviously it's more work, but I remember someone at COSIDA last year said, if you want athletes to share your content, make content they want to share. And it just sounds so freaking obvious, but it's so true. And they want good looking, like, pose shots of themselves. It's more work, but that's what they want. And we want to amplify the work that we're doing. We want to get it to reach as many people as possible. We need to make content the athletes want to share.
It's a great point. Thanks, Connor. Spencer?
Yeah, so the last couple of years we've grown a little bit, but like the standard has essentially become everybody's in. So it depends sport wise. I think football, we only did 25 people approximately. We got super lucky with the group we picked because like half of them got drafted and we ended up all Canadians, like those kinds of things. So we got like really lucky that time. Hopefully we can repeat that again this year. But there's also desire to do more because there's guys that missed it, guys that ended up coming out and being stars later. So we're going to have to figure that one out. I think that's not a unique football problem. But like, I'm looking for like our basketball ones, like the photo shoot gallery ends up being about 500 pictures all in all. It's a lot, but we've boiled it down to a pretty good science where it takes no more than 2 hours each team. If you work with your photographer, find out their workflow, get the right space, and that's including headshots a lot of the time. So it's the only way that we've been able to do it like this. Sometimes we'll have to come back separately if we're doing video stuff, like we'll mostly focus on photos, but we were able to really spread it out. Some of our non-news sports like men's rugby has a photo shoot session where they're able to get the similar servicing and stuff like that. So we've built it out pretty well. We're lucky with our photographers that they're good with it. And it really only takes, myself or Graham and photographer, maybe somebody else to help just kind of herd the kittens. But it's worked really well. And I think everybody's been happy with it. We've seen instantly after we share out everything, everybody's profile pictures are changed. Everybody's Instagram posts are coming out. They're tagging us and everything. They're following the rules that we want to put in place. So I think it's been a great investment. It is it's a headache to get all together, but then now it's starting to become standard and it's really like everybody's buying it.
I will be emailing you about all of this. Thank you. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I did. That's okay. Like I'm seeing, now I have to do a webinar. And how are we sharing the images? We have Photo Shelter. It's a website where we dump everything in. Everybody has access. There's an app on their phones. They download it all. It has all the tagging, photo information, everything like that. It's awesome. It's been a really helpful tool for us.
Sorry, Alicia. Thank you. Spencer, Pearl.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of respond to John's comments about media conferences, in particular at nationals, I guess. I think it's just up to the host school. The host school knows, the SID knows the media better than anyone else. Montreal used to be really good for college sports media. Now, with the retirements of the guy at the Gazette and the guy at the Journal de Montréal and the guy at La Presse, it's almost a lost art out here to try and get media coverage other than what we produce on our own. So it's up to each school to decide whether or not a press conference will work. There's nothing worse than having a press conference and no one shows up. So I just think you have to play it by ear. The national office has to work with the host SID to figure out what the best solution is to have a media day or a press conference, etc. That's about it.
Great point, Pearl. I think every sport's different. I don't think there's one blanket solution for every sport, for sure. Katie. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hi, Jill. Good. How are you?
Good.
We missed you in Vegas last year.
Oh my gosh.
I just wanted to build kind of on Spencer's point. Obviously, I'm a very small school compared to many of you. We only have 8 teams, but we do manage to do headshots and all our still portrait photos within an hour and a half for all of our teams. We brought this back last year. People told me it was going to take forever. Coaches only give me an hour and a half and we made it happen. And that includes team photos as well. So all of that is done in an hour and a half. And I think a big part of that too is sending out emails ahead of time. So I sent out emails to the coaches and to the athletes with a bunch of photos that we were looking for, especially because we'd never done that before. So this is kind of the look. Come prepared with like what you're comfortable doing in front of the camera. Because some people like those like screaming, super aggressive photos. Some people are smilers, so they only want to smile. So that way they can kind of pick their poses. And we told them to have 3 prepared. So that way they were like ready to go, and we filtered it in and out. And then it's really nice too that the athletes kind of build off of each other. So if they see someone doing something, then they kind of adapt their choice after that. And just what we were seeing in terms of engagement, it was huge. I would say that was probably the most I've ever seen MRU athletes like share photos, share graphics, because they saw them on them. We were tagging them specifically in them. So the amount of shares was huge. I don't run our social, so I don't know the numbers. But then even something as simple as posters on campus had kind of died, and that took like a huge boom because people were loving seeing their teammates, their classmates on those. We would feature 2 athletes a week, and our student athletes were actually lining up every week when I would take them down to take them home. So I think it created like a huge change in terms of our marketing pieces, and we did it really quickly. So I think now this year we're going to try and build it a little bit more, but I think as much prep that you can do ahead of time really helps. So get the coaches involved, get the athletes prepared, and show them kind of your feel and what you're looking for. And that kind of helps move things really quickly.
That's amazing. Thank you. I can't believe you do that in 90 minutes. I now have a goal. I now have a goal in mind.
It's a lot. You're sweating, you're running around. It's crazy, but it's worth it. It changed a lot of things for us. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Difference between 8 teams and 88 teams, Jill.
Fair, but
Yeah,
maybe
I know what it's like to have a lot of teams. I've been on both sides.
yeah, we won't do all 42 teams.
Yeah.
That's impossible. But Kevin, hi Kevin.
Hey, yeah, so we're kind of in the same boat, and it's always been kind of the attitude of like the marketable athletes. So we still get we get Michael P. Hall to come in and do a promo shoot with our marketable athletes for more of the higher gloss images and things like that. But just this past year, we tried doing photo shoots of every team, and it went pretty well. We kind of relied more on our like staff photographers, our freelancers and students. So it worked well. The thing that worked well was we kind of staggered it. So like we do like a football media day. They're kind of obviously the outlier, but we'd stagger it based on like start times. So like volleyball we didn't do until like November, but the rugbies and soccers we got over earlier. And I think that was the only way we could do it because it's a lot of athletes. And obviously we do focus on our varsity teams over our varsity clubs. So.
Amazing, thank you. And I guess a follow-up question for anybody, is anybody doing like a media day type photo shoot? And I'm looking at Andrea from TMU right here with their recruits. So a recruit comes in, they sign their LOI, or they've accepted their offer admission or whatever, they've committed to your program, and they all want this NCAA style promo shot of themselves on the court, on the ice, like wherever. I don't have the capacity to do it, but I'm feeling that it's becoming the norm in the industry. So is anyone doing that? I know Andrea just put out a cool video for a men's basketball athlete at TMU, which obviously I'm waiting for my coach to see and send to me and ask, why can't we do this? But is anyone doing a photo shoot kind of style with recruits, and how do you implement that? Like, do you have something set up, or what do you do?
We at SAS started this year. It was part of our recruiting process. We invited them all to spring camp, and then we did kind of a media day shoot with our next year prospects, the ones who are considering coming to Sask. And it did that for the first time ever, but it was amazing, the feedback that we got. And again, they were sharing on all their social media. And one of our coaches said he's like, there were some kids that were borderline trying to figure out whether they wanted to come or not, and that was part of the kind of part of their experience as a recruit coming in for, again, next season. It made them feel really welcome and unique here. So
that's amazing.
Probably end up doing that again next year. But is it a recruiting violation? I don't know. We haven't signed anyone.
Well, yeah, fair. That's amazing.
Well, so actually, it's close to it, but there's no tangible benefit. So, but I'm just joking. It's pretty. It's a cool concept that everybody's talking about here.
Because we have a big fundraising breakfast for football, and then that kicks off our spring camp. So all of those recruits, potential recruits, also were invited to breakfast. And then we just invited them to watch practice and hang out at our scrimmage, and then took some photos.
That's interesting. Do some of our department coaches, whoever, have an issue with taking photos of someone in our jersey who's not going to be in our jersey, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Our football team really wanted to try that this year and see. And then we already did have someone who wants to commit to another program, but then they're gone.
Got it.
Yeah.
Anyone else doing anything recruiting wise?
We do that with the photos of potential recruits that may not come. So if they come, we've talked to our coaches. Would you rather the kitchen table photo, which we go on the Ridgeback Instagram account. There is like a women's hockey player sitting there with flowers at her parents' kitchen table. It exists. I can't get around all of them, but if they come on a campus tour, that is built in. And their parents are told, hey, this is why we're doing it. If you sign, we want it to look as professional as possible. If you don't, I delete the folder on my hard drive. Have a nice day. Good luck at whatever other school. And that's the way we approach it is, do you want it to be the parent taking an iPhone photo or on a potato? Like sometimes the photos are terrible. So we approach it that way. Do you want it to look as best as possible? Tell the player there's no pressure. This is why we're doing it. You're not signing today. But if you do, we don't want you to have to come back from Manitoba to Oshawa before September kind of thing. So that's how we've approached it. And they've just put it into their tours, like the end of the day or beginning, whatever they're most comfortable with. We take a quick photo of them in a jersey, a hoodie, whatever it is. Say, enjoy your day. Hopefully you come. If not, like, don't score too many points against us.
That's funny. So you basically take the photos, but you don't share them with them until they commit.
Pretty much. And I do that with all recruits though, because as much as like them breaking it on their account, breaking it, quote unquote, isn't really going to do anything crazy. I generally say like, we want to make sure like everything's aligned with when we're going. So the day I'm sending it out, I send them the full folder of photos.
Okay, thanks everybody. As you can tell, I'm just already overwhelmed and it's June. I'm already overwhelmed with media days and they haven't even started yet, but hey, we'll see how they go.
One other thing for media day, and I don't know if anybody else does this. So we do hockey separate. So we do every sport in the first week of September, and then we do hockey later. And we also push it just late enough that any sports that are picked later, like whether it's like a curling or whatever, we just invite them to go to the rink at the end of the hockey session. So the hockey players don't have to walk over in full equipment to the gym. And then we just send it to any players or teams that were picked later, and they have the option to drop in. We don't necessarily push it the same way. But that's just strictly photos posed in equipment. That's no headshots. We do those. I just set up lights outside my office and have a full day to capture the athletes picked later. But we do every sport first week of September, headshots, pose shots. And we have 2 photographers and send an email to each sport with a time slot. And like, that's what you get. Soccer, you get an hour for the 2 teams, like figure it out. And then like the small sports like golf, we just say drop in whenever, and we just squeeze them in, like the 5 athletes, whatever it is. But again, I'd like to be like Katie and be in out in an hour and a half. Like that just sounds amazing.
I literally have no choice. They won't give me more than that and they won't miss practice. So that's what I got. Got to make it work.
I think our athletes would miss a week of practice if I let them be in a shoot for that long. So anyway, I like both of your mantras of, yeah, amazing. I will definitely be in touch with all of you who have spoken about all of your best practices. Thank you.
So any other questions? I know I kind of started off with media day. Anything else anybody's working on, working through, dealing with coaches in the social media world, whatever it is, throw it out there.
I am actually quite fascinated by the number of team accounts that are popping up. And the reason why I ask this is because, again, the reflection about our sport specific channels, right, for youth sports. So how do the schools where you have team run accounts, how do you manage the integration of content between, your sub channels, let's call them, and your main channel.
Chelsea, do you want to chime in on how we're managing hours here at Dow?
So sorry, Ange, I didn't. Yeah, that didn't come very clear on my speaker. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was asking Chelsea if she wanted to weigh in, but I think she may have stepped away for a second. We've been putting into we're making people give us the password to those accounts, and so we have access to all of those accounts, and ultimately, so that when those kids leave that are managing it, they don't leave with the keys in the car in the parking lot. Because that we've had to redo a couple of accounts that way. We also have them all loaded up into Hootsuite, and so we go through, or we say we, Chelsea goes through an orientation with them, sometimes as individuals or as a group, if she can get them all in. We've got a guide, a basic guide for them, and they focus on you know, posts and things like that that aren't in competition with the stuff that we're already putting out. So if we're pushing a game day, you know, is coming up, or 1 week to a home opener, we put that on their account for them, and they're adding other things like that, so they have an idea of what's being put on there, so there's not duplication of effort. And likewise, they you know, they're DMing or sending us photos because, hey, we're putting this on here, and it becomes a shared thing. So Hootsuite's been helpful with that. It's a lot to kind of monitor sometimes, but it's been working so far. Better than the alternative of having them out there, even just with their own images, like using old versions of the Tigers logo and, you know, or weird colors that aren't what we want them using. So it's professionalized it a little bit, and it's allowed for there to be some consistent content on there, so that if they get busy with school or something else at the time, there's not a lag in that account.
Well, since I asked the question, Heather.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to Angela, we also, again, we have 15 teams, I think. And we have either a student or sometimes it's a coach, because they really like to do it, running the team accounts. And again, we have oversight into everything. We all have their passwords, just in case someone posts something rogue, we can go in there and delete it. Hasn't happened yet, but it's the reality of social media. And again, for that transfer, when someone leaves, so that we have those passwords. We're using something that we've switched from Sprout Social just now to Buffer. So we'll be inviting all of our team accounts to use Buffer as well. We let them know when we're scheduling something in there, so that they don't put something on there that conflicts. And again, we're also taking a page out of Mount Royal's books. We're setting them up on Canva as well with a brand kit. So they have all of their logos. They have the correct color of green, because it's a very specific shade. And then we're going to put some templates in there for them as well. We do have some who are very proficient in Photoshop, so we'll let them. We have the former SID here who's running our women's hockey account. So, you know, I trust he knows what he's doing. And I talk to him quite a bit. So it's, you know, we want to ensure things are as flawless and as brand aligned as possible.
That's very cool. Which one of your former SIDs?
Raul.
Raul, okay. Sorry.
The one I took over for, yeah.
Okay,
He still is volunteering to do our women's hockey. So you'll probably, and he's on the championship committee as well. So.
I was just going to ask, so he'll be working with us on the championship. That's awesome. That's great. That's fantastic. Thanks, Heather. Andrea?
Yeah, some similar comments, I guess. Just I manage a team. We have specific student roles called team social media assistants. There's one assigned to each of our varsity teams. So for us, that's 8. So I manage those 8 students in addition to my other digital content students. So we kind of have a bit of a robust plan in terms of what the team social media assistant does versus what the digital content assistant does versus what I do. But that also our team social media assistants, they also have direction, or they can take direction from our coaches specifically. So if there's something that the department isn't planning to do, but the team wants to focus on, then the student kind of gets direction from the coach and the team directly as well as to what content they want to see. And that kind of typically ends up being stuff more around social justice initiatives or kind of more of that fun, like behind the scenes kind of content. So that's how we work at TMU.
Cool. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, so I kind of adopted what we have right now. So, and I don't love a lot about it, but basically every team has what we call a social media most responsible person, or MRP. And for whatever reason, we didn't have any of like the password information collected. So that's one thing that I'm currently working on. So if anybody is thinking of going in this direction, I think that's the most important thing, is to make sure you have access to all the accounts. Just coming from someone who's having to try to regain access, we've had one account in particular that they had to recreate just based on unfortunate circumstances. So in terms of branding, we use a tool called Box Out. I know a few other schools use it, and I recognize like Brock when I see their graphics and things. And I think that's a great tool, kind of along the same lines as the Canva, where you can implement the brand elements, and then you don't have the student athlete or the volunteer kind of messing around with some of the colors, as we know are so important to sort of the brand identity. But yeah, that's what we do.
I appreciate that, Kevin. And we're actually going to be moving back to Box Out most likely this year for a lot of our social graphics. So you will see that some of our very intense graphics for like top 10s are going to become much more basic text-based, which also means less chance of us screwing up one of your logos, putting the wrong colors out there, things like that came up throughout the year, or logos being cut off. We can actually create them, and we're working with Box Out on a couple of templates. So we'll be reaching out. Probably Tyler will probably reach out to you, Kevin, to get some more information on some of the things you do. Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, John. Very similar. We're a small department, not a lot of options, so we're using score shots. Another option, we were with Box Out, didn't like the clunkiness of Box Out, so we went to score shots, which gives you a little bit more flexibility within your graphics creation. But again, same locking in colors, logos, all that stuff. We're going to be, we kind of tested it out last year. We're going to be opening that up to our teams. I'm going to be working to communicate to our teams the type of content we'll be producing on their behalf, obviously through collaborations, most likely on Instagram, and then allowing them to kind of go outside of that as needed. The one point I wanted to make around losing accounts, yeah, collecting your passwords, great. The other thing that and it may be different on different campuses, but I had all of our team accounts set to a UBC pass or email, so that they can be recovered in the instance where something has gone wrong. So our IT department confirmed like we could get access to those emails, to those coach emails 6 months after they leave, fired, whatever might happen, just as an extra layer. Not only having the passwords, but you're not updating those continuously, maybe once a year. So just something else to think about there. Andrea, I wanted to ask, how much are you paying those team social media people? Are you paying them?
Yep, they're part of our Career Boost program at TMU, so it's partially government subsidized, but they do, if it's their first time working for us, they get minimum wage. We have kind of a sliding scale in our marketing department. If students work for us for multiple years, they kind of go up on the pay scale. So each person in some ways is a little bit different, whether they've been there for 1 year or for 4 years, but they start at minimum wage.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I mean, yeah, just wondering about budget, because that's really interesting and something that we have inconsistency in our teams, because it's just being kind of passed out to mostly a student. Sometimes if it's a coach, it's a little bit better run, but yeah, just really intrigued by that idea. So yeah, thanks.
No worries.
quick
Spencer,
little
sorry.
thing to add. Yeah, no, it's okay. So we operate a little bit more intensely on our team accounts than probably a lot. I don't know if any of my colleagues from other schools have noticed that, but that's we utilize our team accounts essentially as like mini main accounts where all of the information that you need to know about the team should be visible from their team accounts. So it's a pretty big investment that we've made in it overall from just the amount of work. So when we talk about why we do the media days the way we do, all those other things, because we're using them to filter onto our team accounts. So yeah, we just, everything between myself, Graham, kind of the sport info office, student support, we centrally operate all of our varsity team accounts. We do have some that are a little bit of collaboration, whether it's with work study students that are within the teams that are interested in it, trying to get them some experience. But at the end of the day, we found it easiest, especially in our institution, with trying to make sure that everything is going out bilingually. And other challenges that, like, if we can centralize the translation support that's necessary, then we're not downloading that onto students, which is a huge challenge in and of itself. So that's really how we operate. The main account is still kind of operated by our marketing side of things, but there's a little bit more collaboration than there's ever been currently. But we try to use that as kind of a catch-all, promotional, those kinds of things. And then that's how that operates. But yeah, we have a pretty strong commitment to it, but it's the way that we've seen it work. We've seen really good growth on it overall since we've kind of adopted a model that's a little bit more complete in that way.
Spence, just to follow up on that, do you have a standard tweet bank or a bank of pieces for translation?
Sometimes, like, we kind of have, like, translation's been, as I don't have to explain it to you, John, as you know, it's been it's always a challenge, but we have before. Now we're kind of in a direction where, like, we'll send translation a bunch of captions before the weekend, and then we'll just kind of pull from them throughout. So we'll just think of a lot of situations that we might need, and then we can reuse those over the course and build that out. So we are doing a good amount of, like, specific sends. But we found the model is, like, it's quicker to send short stuff. They're used to it. They're expecting it from us, than us dumping a massive document and then having them translate, and some of it doesn't all fit. So that's kind of how we're managing it.
Interesting. I was just wondering because we even found this year during the championships that even though we had a tweet bank of things for people to use, our students and our interns like to go off script or rogue, and you try and have a creative flair, which only exasperates the bilingual issues where it becomes le coupe as opposed to la coupe, or just things that is like you can't say that in French. So it's just interesting to hear how you do that as well.
Yeah, you can, our translator, our main translator, Eric, is we throw some crazy stuff at him, and he comes back with all kinds of, like, we try to use the jargon that we want, and sometimes it doesn't translate amazing, like it's a little bit more toned down in French, but we do use it as an opportunity that sometimes it doesn't have to be an exact match. It can be something cool in French too that stands apart. So there are opportunities that we use there.
Yeah, and sometimes we actually find that in French it's easier to come up with something cool, as opposed to English. So and then we have the same thing going back the other way. So thanks for that, Pearl.
We're probably looking at going to bilingual announcements. We only do bilingual announcements when it's a major story or a hiring of a big coach, etc. And we outsource it. Typically, we use Michel Belanger, who's pretty good. But we're looking at probably going more fully bilingual based on the way the government politics are here. Maybe not this season, but certainly by the following year. And I'm just wondering what thoughts are on using, whether it be AI or using some sort of translation automated service. There's one that I've used called DeepL, which seems to be pretty popular on the Francophone side of the world. I'm wondering if other people use the translation, like automated translation, what they think of going in that direction is. Like, in other words, like we still do game stories. They're not, some are long, some are kept short. And I know most of the schools kind of don't go in that direction any longer, but I still see a value in it. I'm thinking of just doing game stories and translating them in an automated translator, and then obviously looking at it to see there's little things that have to obviously be double checked. For example, if you write football, it will translate it into soccer, or vice versa. So or field hockey, like hockey translates into field hockey sometimes. So little things like that, I know that has to be looked at, but I'm just wondering if anyone's used that in the past for like regular translation and what they think of it.
So it's interesting, Earl, that you bring this up. We are starting to get into that a little bit more at the national office. So Presto actually has an AI translator. That's within 3 times of you doing something, it will learn the error. So that's an interesting one. We're using, for the U Sports Buzz, we may actually use some AI voiceovers, because it's not our awards pieces, but we will we'll do some of those pieces there. So yeah, we're starting to use AI a little bit more to help on translation.
Do you think that's a good direction we'll probably end up going into, and not necessarily just for translation, but maybe even for writing? If someone wants to do game stories and they just can't handle the workload, just go to an AI source or go to whatever, with something that's online that will put it together.
So we got 15 seconds on this. I will answer on the other side when we go back into the main room here, because CP has got some stuff for us. Oh, there we go. I think we're already, yeah, we're heading over there now.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the breakout rooms ended there. Oh, the breakout rooms ended and Joe came back with a helper.
Yeah. Where's Pearl?
He got lost in the interwebs.
Yeah. How did he get lost? Because I was going to tell him that the Canadian Press, we had a meeting with them when we were at the Athletes of the Year award out in Calgary, and it's not AI, but they actually can take from a box score and write a recap for hockey. That's how they do all their CHL pieces now. Here's Earl, so I'll hold off. Pearl, are you there? Earl?
Looks like he doesn't have audio right now.
Okay. There's Earl. Okay, so Earl, what I was starting to say is that when we met with the Canadian Press at the Athlete of the Year Awards, so the editor in chief is there, and he was telling us that they've developed something for hockey for the CHL where they can take the access to the box score through an XML feed, take it, ingest it, and write their CP style recap. So we're starting to have some conversations about them for U Sports, about some of our other sports, because if they work with us on basketball, well, then they can use that on the NBA. So make their mistakes with us. So we may be starting to move into that. That's it's a simple 150 word recap, but it may actually be able to do that, and they translate automatically, right, because of La Presse Canadienne. So I would suggest that we're probably going down this path, and your reflection is a good one to start looking at some of the AI for translation, and eventually it will probably get to writing recaps. There are some NCAA schools that are using a software in the States where it's already doing that. I think Notre Dame actually was one of the bigger ones. I saw it on our CANSIDA chat, I think it was, or it might have been with CSC. Anyways, my point here is that find ways to integrate it into our routines.
I certainly like that idea of partnering with CP, just so we all have a consistent style, and then we make our own changes to the text if we need it. But so what would something like that's something that would be passed on as a cost to each school, or how would that work?
No, so that's the beauty that the editor in chief happens to be working with us for the Athletes of the Year. He's on the foundation. He's one of the trustees. So it's right now, it's working to make sure that they can get access through Presto to our pieces and then start testing and then look how they can build out those, what are the keywords and the key pieces of data that they're looking to capture to be able to say, Earl Zuckerman had 12 points. Well, John Bauer pulled down 10 rebounds as the University of Southern Montreal Flying Padoos defeated the Windsor Lancers 116-114. Yeah, you like that, Alicia? I got it. Gotcha. Hey, it's my school too, Elisa. So it's just those are some of the pieces there.
I think it'd be fabulous if we could have access to a CP generated software.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think there would be cost, because what we'll be looking to do with them is, hey, you make your mistakes with us, build it out. You've already got the CHL done. We want to have access to that, and just and then we want access to that content, right? Just let our members have it, and we go from there, and then makes it a lot easier at the end of the day. And that allows us to spend more time writing soccer and rugby and things like that, where they may not have the market for it yet.
Good idea.
So Jill, how many more years before they become our next generation of university sport communicators?
She really just wants to look at pictures of dogs.
Hose, come here. Come.
So she can go work for Chris then.
Come here. Down. Come here, puppy dog. Come here, puppy dog.
Now this meeting.
You don't have to mute yourself, Jill. She's too cute.
Now this meeting's deteriorating.
Dude. Hello. Hose, Papa.
Look at the doggy.
The puppy dog.
Now we want milk. Okay, we're out of here, folks.
Okay, here you go, puppy dog.
Thanks so much, everybody. It was great to chat with everybody.
Good to see everyone. Have a good summer.
Thanks, Jill.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.